Dear participants to the conference, dear partners and friends, the conference is being held in the background of the deteriorating situation in the world. It's my regret, but we need to state that over the past year, the level of confrontation has grown everywhere, specifically when it comes to the Russian-NATO standoff. The massive expulsion of Russian diplomats from the United States and other countries, US satellites, under totally forged pretexts, without any regard to the international law norms, is a very sad evidence to that. The turbulence of the international relations can be explained by the transitional period of the world order today. The question is, what is this world order? And on the one hand, we can see the strengthening of mutual dependency and its quite objective globalization approach. The global economic processes are not confined to individual countries or even regions. The single information environment is being shaped. New influential centers of power are emerging in the international arena, such as India, Brazil, South Africa, and of course China and Russia. But those changes do not suit the Western world, and the United States and the Western world are not prepared for those changes. They cannot see the truth and just get along with the end of their unlimited influence, and they still want to build their relations with other countries on the basis of the old roots dating back to the colonial times, such as enforcement and dictate. Instead of looking to the future, the West is trying to keep old practices and the practices of the Cold War. Primarily, I'm talking about the alliance-based system and such organizations as NATO, European Union, which used to be quite efficient in promoting Western interests, but they have turned into retrograde agencies. They are not able to establish order even at home. The United States and their allies are trying to stop, or at least to impede, the objective transformation of the global world order. And it's not surprising that the main target of their attacks is Russia, which is viewed by them as one of the most efficient engines of the changes taking place in the world. Countering inexistent Russian threat has become an idea de fixe in the Washington policy. It has grown to such a scale and has acquired such silly features that we can speak about the return of those dark pages of the Cold War. Looks like we do not have any objective reasons for the return of the Cold War. It's all over. And there is no ideological standoff between East and West. And more so, the world community now faces entirely new challenges, such as international terrorism and the need to establish sustainable development and environmental safety. We can cope with those challenges only if we join our effort, and you cannot do that unless Russia, China, India, and Brazil are involved, as well as other centers of a polycentric world. However, fearing those changes, the West is ready to establish a new Iron Curtain. And we are really shocked by the level of hypocrisy which Washington and its satellites use in order to project their plans and their mighty, so-called mighty, in the world. The United States is trying to disguise their rough dictate under the auspices of Euro-Atlantic or international solidarity. They are trying to impose force and make it look like voluntarily intentions of the countries, and the aggressive pressure inflicted by United States ambassadors and UK ambassadors on NATO allies, EU countries, Asian countries is just striking, and it is done in the so-called case of the Skripals family. Certainly, politics is far from being a decent business, but at this level, at that present, the hypocrisy and lies in order to whitewash Western hegemony is unprecedented. In fact, all the standards that are used to regulate the relations between the countries are totally distorted. George Orwell once wrote that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. End of quote. And it's very close to the witches of Macbeth with their thesis of evil is virtue and virtue is evil. As a result, we are coming up with a very dangerous situation when we seem to be talking the same international language of legitimacy. Rather, we use the same words, but Western politicians introduce different sense into those words, which make them absurd. So all those talks about human rights and liberties were used as a pretext of intervention to in other countries, and once done, there was no point in guaranteeing those human rights there. Over the past 2 decades, resulting from NATO aggression in Europe, Central Asia and Africa, inflicted hundreds and thousands of innocent lives. Under the pretext of the triumph of freedom, traditional values are being eroded, such as religion, nation, family, and even the gender. Sometimes the interests of the majority of the people are being restricted in so-called democratic countries, and the majority of the people cannot even protect their rights facing aggressive minorities. So they have to really try to ask excuses for their existence. And the times when they talks about peace and freedom led to the bombing of Yugoslavia, Iraq, Libya, and when Western version of globalization, and in fact, which was in fact neocolonialism, becoming history now. For many of people, it became clear in the times of the Georgian-Ossetian conflict, but really it became quite clear during the Syrian conflict. We can see that in a multipolar world, the unilateral pressure has no future. We can see that the Washington-made system of dependency makes errors, and even the most loyal allies of the United States are trying to distance themselves from them. And but the United States has no doubts to sacrifice them for seeking their purposes. And even in this greatest provocation of Skripal's, which was rigged very roughly by the US and the UK secret services, some European countries try not to follow this suit and trying to see the reasons. And trying not to notice the changes. The United States looks more and more like Goliath of the Bible that, as we know, was defeated by young David. So the world community really should give another thought to that episode of the Bible, and so that we could really see the situation when it is based not on some selfish interests of a single player, but on the interests shared by all. We need to stop that irresponsible game of going short and stop using force in interstate relations. We should really stop short of bringing another Cuban crisis, missile crisis, because now we are faced with the most relevant matters of ensuring prosperity and truly freedom development of the people. And for that end, we need to try to strengthen both global and regional institutions, as trying to improve our tool sets of international relations, making it more suitable for the multipolar architecture. We need to reset the system of international legal relations, making it really running. And for that end, we need to stop using double standards. And finally, we need to start talking same international language until it is not too late. Thank you.